So, what I wanted to tackle today, and somebody in the chat, I forget who, asked this question, which is kind of funny because I'm wanted to do a thing on this. Was how do you know when to Tenuki in the opening? How do you know? We see pro games do it. It seems like for completely no reason they just stop in the middle of a joseki and I'm just going to go somewhere else, right? And it doesn't seem to make any sense. Now, you could take this from a joseki perspective and study all the josekis and know which ones at which move you can tenuki from. Personally, I hate memorizing joseki. I hate learning and remembering variations. I actually love using principles and general rules and trying to apply them in multiple situations. I think trying to search for those rules is much more, for me, satisfying and helpful because you learn to rely on your own strength instead of just trying to memorize sequences. And memorizing is definitely necessary when you want to try to get better at the game, but I think it all has a theoretical basis, and so that's what we're going to try to tackle today. I've got 3 games for you. 3 games. And I think this might help anybody who isn't really sure when they can actually play away. Because there's some things that pro players do that, right? Well, it's because I'm an engineer. That's exactly it. It's my training. Memorizing is for noobs. So there are things that pro players do and similarities in the way that they sacrifice. And right off the bat, I'm going to say that the goal of playing away, you play away when you can afford to have the thing that you played away from be attacked. So if the profit you're getting from playing away is bigger than the ramifications of being attacked, that means it's good. So we can even take a simple example like this. This is just take this as it stands. It's a common joseki. Everyone knows it. And here, right? That's true. That's a true point, Ina, to be fair. Sometimes you have to go through these sequences and like figure it out. But yeah, definitely rote memorization I don't enjoy. And I don't enjoy, like this variation you can do this variation you can do this. This just, to me, that just feels so not human about the game. I enjoy like, like this is weak, we should attack this. What's the best way with the best shape to attack this? So I enjoy it a slightly different order, but it's a personal preference. In any case, we can see these 2 josekis. Very simple. Usually black plays away, right, from this joseki. Usually, like, black considers it done. He does his thing, does whatever else he wants to do, right? When you get higher up in the game, you realize that this is now a thing. It's an invasion. It's an attack on these 3 black stones, right? And it's going to be very hard for black to kill it. Like, if white really wants, white should be able to make this stone live if he uses the aji right. The reason that most people play away from here is because one of 2 things. Black can, let's say black has a stone here, right? And then white does that invasion. Black might be able to get a large attack going on this group by forcing this white group to live. Then perhaps, doing an undercut on the base. Then like maybe when white goes down to play here, and then he does this, black can jump out. Black can one more time, then like press down. He has options of making his situation worth more to him than what white can do. And sometimes he miscalculates, and sometimes that reduction is all white needed. Another variation that I saw was, black can do this and essentially force white to like connect under if black really wants like power here. Something simple like that. So right away, this joseki, technically you're tenukiing away from a position with vulnerabilities. All that matters is how can you benefit from these vulnerabilities. So in the spirit of that, I want to go through 3 programs. One, they just have a really cool way of managing their groups. And then the next 2 has the same joseki. One player, in one game, the player defends the joseki. In the other game, the player doesn't defend the joseki, and we see how the opponent capitalizes, which I'm very excited about. So let's get started. Oh, and bad, yeah. Memorize the memorization is bad, for sure. So we see the game starting pretty normally. Just for context, I don't know if anybody knows these pros. I was just clicking around on random games. This is a game between Sonje, Z-H-E, and Ryu Shikun. One seems Chinese, one seems Japanese, so this is a pretty normal opening. We see Black go ahead and take his Orthodox enclosure. It's actually exactly the game that I started playing. So we then see White do the standard approach from here, but whereas in my game, Black pincered right away, Black decided to take an enclosure the other way, which is, I mean, it's a choice, and it's totally fine to do. Now, White plays a move that, if you don't realize what it does, it seems to be playing away. He plays this. What this actually is it's linked to this stone here, because it's a probe. It's saying, all right, Black, like, what exactly do you want? Do you want me to, make a base in here? Do you want me to try to attack your corner? Do you want to keep your corner and go towards the outside? I'm going to do whatever you don't do. Not to mention that if Black does decide to pincer this stone, we see that it can very easily manage a base here. We can see that this is a very easy base, and White can make an eye by playing here. If Black wants to keep that, Black would have to play here. But then White can just jump out and what have you. So this stone isn't in danger of really dying. And so now it's a matter of, can he get more? So White makes an asking move, and Black Hani's over, saying I'm kind of interested in the corner and want to see what you do. White strengthens his stone. Now remember, these are far enough apart so that, like I said, this is still a thing that if Black decides to pincer, White can manage this stone. And White can most likely manage the stone. There's enough room, essentially. Especially since there's the aji of this cutting point here. If Black does decide to Tenuki somewhere, White can play this, which is pretty tough to deal with. Black can do this, but then the ladder works. Black tries to Atari. White could make a base immediately if he wants. So, no danger, right? White can keep playing here, but he shouldn't Tenuki, because if White does Tenuki and lets Black completely swallow this stone, not only is he hurting the prospects here, but why did he even do this, right? So we see Black go here, and we see White play here, and then Black fill in. Now we see White play a linking move, and I really want to try this because this is actually pretty cool. It's a very fast developing move meant to try to connect all of Black's stones together at once. So no one's really played away yet. Like, White played away here only because the one stone against a 4/4, like the sequence I showed you, can easily make life. And he decided to throw a probe to see what Black does. But once these two groups got a little bit settled, he's keeping in the spirit of defending his weaknesses. So even though it seems like a Tenuki, these were all very connected multi-purpose moves for White. And White believes that they are worth more for him at the time. Here we go. We see Black immediately pincer, which might freak some people out, but that's the nature of the game. White's aiming for fast development, which means that White knows that not all of this is going to be territory for him. But White believes that this fast development will let him get advantages later on. So, like, we don't see Black playing away here, right? I mean, he could. There's a lot of freedom in the opening, but this is, I want to take from White's perspective, because this is how sort of White handles these things. White doesn't Tenuki from here. Should not Tenuki from here. Letting Black, split these two groups in half, make this one weak, gets around the outside, then he can, like, undercut this one would not be great. So we see White work to try to connect both of them. And I'm sure everybody knows this joseki. There's multiple ways that it can work out. And this is very interesting. Black plays here, which is really cool too, because we see a lot of probes in pro games, right? These single stones to sort of see what White's goal is, to sort of feel around what Black's goal is. Thank you, Yagdrazo. Welcome to the stream. So we see a lot of these probe moves, and amateurs can misinterpret this and think that if they have a weak group, playing away from the weak group is like, you can get more points elsewhere. But you have to realize that these probes, they have plan upon backup plan upon backup plan to make all this work, and they've thought almost every variation out. This is sort of asking, how White wants to handle the split of these two stones. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to, like, invest more moves, trying to connect them, and maybe giving me more room to maybe connect up? Is that your goal? Do you care about these two stones at all? Would you rather take this and let me split and sack them? Like, what do you want to do? So don't mistake these probes for Tenukis, because nothing's in huge danger of dying. A single stone dying is okay as long as what you're playing elsewhere, gets you more profit. We see White. Where are we going here? Did I wreck the tree? Probably did. Oh yeah, I totally did. That was the other one. That was this one. That was this one. Wow. Yeah, Bat, this is hard. Really hard to not wreck this. I didn't even start correct for me. Let's just go to the end of every tree and try to figure out where we are. Here we go. Okay, so we see Black here. We see White actually play here. And what this is saying is, even though like people might think it's Tenukiing, all of these things are very connected to each other. White's saying the connectivity of these stones is more important to me than these two stones. And like what we said before, that was the asking move, right? If White thought that the other one was more important and played here, Black would probably try to get some territory. But because, where are we? Nope, that's not the one. Where? No, stop. I'm so bad at this. Where did I go? I now understand why, like, trying to keep track of the tree is so important. Okay, we're back. So we see White play here. Nope, not there. Here. So Black decides, hey, Ruru, what's up? We're going over Tenukiing in the opening. And so Black decides to take his profit. He said, okay, you don't care about the connectivity of here. I am simply going to jump out and surround them. So it's almost like business negotiations. I think a problem that what amateurs do is they Tenuki without recognizing what the exchange means. They don't really realize what they're giving up when they Tenuki. And the pros know exactly what they're giving up when they Tenuki, which is why it's so great to study them. So now we see situation, and so many people would probably Tenuki here. I guarantee you, tons of people, if they were playing White, like, oh, we're fine, like, take an enclosure, maybe take away the use of his wall, maybe just develop here. But white realizes that an attack on this group right now would be catastrophic. Black can still pull this stone out, or at least almost pull it out if he wants. If white decides to Tenuki and, black plays a move like this, right? Can force white to capture this. You can surround white. Get some shape pokes over here. And maybe if black even wanted to not even do any of that and just surround the corner. This is getting a little pressured. Black want to come out over top of here. He could. So giving black a tempo on this group is not good. So white decides, I'm going to settle this right now. He doesn't play away. He does not play away because an attack on this group, white sees as worth way more than he could get by playing a single stone somewhere else. And so we see the normal joseki that is played. There. Right? And so now white's group is much more stable. It's got a base, it can make an eye, can even attack this group. White has no problems. And so now in the opening, there really aren't any more weak groups. Black can try to attack this, but he doesn't know how he will profit from that yet. So he decides what is good to block from white. And a lot of times, looking at an attack on your group is a good way to go. So nothing's in danger of dying yet, but you can imagine that if white got a move here, maybe a move here, you can see this black group kind of being squished a little bit. And even if white decided to just pull away right now, that's an amazing extension from this corner, and black's thing is kind of cramped. So black thinks, oh, it's pretty reasonable to simply take that for myself. He didn't try to approach anywhere. He didn't try to do anything. He's just like, I'm not going to let him get an extension and an attack at the same time. Even though it's not weak, it could still look cramped. Now white decides to play. Well, now there's really nothing to attack, so you can focus on what we've been learning as cues, right? Take the big points. Try to limit moyos. Now we're falling back on the more familiar ideas that we're going. From there, it is largely some fighting erupts. We see some things. That's really all I wanted to show you about this game. I thought this was a really cool exchange on the right-hand side. How nobody left this right-hand side. Whereas we as cues would probably do something really uninteresting like this. They're always trying to look for that extra nudge. I also really enjoy the fact that, they all recognize the weaknesses here. Like if black played away from this position, then like I showed you before, this would be very devastating. So he couldn't do that. And that's why white could play this way. We also saw white attempt to remain connected from this fast development. And we saw that when black played here, white didn't freak out and try to save everything. He didn't try to, keep these connected and kill off and capture this territory at the same time. White made a choice. White's like, okay, I am going to keep this strong and take these few points and get an invasion in here later. Goodbye, stones. That's okay. Which let black do this. And then we see white not recognizing or not playing away from this weakness because can get cramped, can get attacked. So white decides, to play this right away. And we see black do a double purpose. Don't let your group get cramped. Move. And even though this is a gote move, these pros are playing these moves. There's a reason they're playing these moves. So I think there's a lot we can learn from that. The next game I want to show you is a really cool game. I really like this game because it's very KGS style. For any of you who are playing KGS, this is as KGS as it gets. There's almost no fighting. There is just complete joseki moyo building, but they do it to a much more advanced degree. And I really like this. And another point I want to impress is how much freedom you have in the opening. I'm going through a few simple rules that I see happening in pro games over and over. The concept of, if you've got something that can be attacked easily, save it before you go off somewhere else. You can Tenuki away from single stones if you think you can get more out of it. But other than that, and other than knowing the basic joseki in corners, there's a lot of freedom in the opening. You might feel constricted because you're doing all this opening theory and you're like, oh, it's best if white does this enclosure here, but we see all sorts of things happen in pro games. And especially at the Q level, the opening is not the deciding factor of the game. It is so not. The middle game is where it matters, not the opening, especially for lower level play. As you get higher and higher, these things matter more. So we see 3-4, 3-4, 3-4, and 4-4. So pretty average thing from this game. White could take an enclosure here if he wants. White could probably even do something else. This is probably big because you don't want white getting an extension here and an enclosure, or attacking your enclosure and getting an extension. But, you can just as well attack white's extension as well. Like I said, there's tons of options in the opening. So black pokes his head in, and we see the start of the joseki everybody knows. And now we see black play away and get his stone in here. And that's very interesting to me, to try to figure out, what exactly about this makes it difficult and makes it okay for black to play away. Well, the first thing you can see is if white does decide to cut, and let's just say for all intents and purposes, black just decides to save this one. It takes white multiple moves in the same area to kill off this stone. And that gets it over concentrated. So like I said, these are a few scattered stones. It's not an entire group yet. They're much more flexible. If white wanted to try to capture these, or take them away, he might get a little over concentrated, and black can do some sabaki, sack some stuff, get some stuff, right? Another thing that I noticed when I looked at this was if white played here right away, we see that this move is pretty strong because it's threatening a ladder if white doesn't do anything. So white would probably be forced to play here. Black might, in theory, sack this stone and start building some power and developing this side of the board. So black has a lot of options, which is why he can Tenuki here. White doesn't see a good way of attacking this yet. So now we see white Tenuki. There's nothing really weak for white to worry about right now. And he doesn't want, white doesn't want black to get his Super Moyo move of the Orthodox, right? So white plays here. I actually, though, think there's another meaning behind this, and I think it goes back to the ladder. I think that if black Tenuki here and white cut right now we see that this ladder threat doesn't work, and white can continue pushing this way, threatening black, and then maybe coming back to remove this Aji. But now black's development is severely hindered because that ladder doesn't work, because it actually goes right down to here. Maybe that might have been another reason why white played that. But we do see it Tenuki. But now the stage is set for white to cut much more effectively than it was before. So that's why we see them wait a little bit. Black decides to develop this side while pincering white at the same time. Now we see them enter a joseki. No one's Tenukiing yet, threatening to bear down on this stone. Black descends. Notice black doesn't do this because then that lets him have sort of an open base that white can get, sort of in Sente. So we see the descent happen from this direction. And we know one's Tenukiing yet. No, white's not attacking this after doing this. White's like, I'm going to be safe right now. And black isn't defending here. Black's like, I think that if I got pincered, now that this group is a little stronger, might be bad news. So I'm going to play a gote move that is helping myself, you know. White's still not attacking this because this is still not strong enough. White's going to make sure that it has a base. And black, remember that move up top in the previous game where black played that 2-space extension because it would have been good for white to get that extension attack combo? Now that this is strong enough, that also becomes an issue. If black plays away, we can see that this is sort of hampering black's style. So black plays the 2-space here. These are all very passive-looking gote moves. And even though they're joseki, there's a reason behind this joseki. It's all about not letting weaknesses happen before you attack other things. Now, and only now, does white choose to cut. White has the ladder working for him now. Everything is strong. He can't see really any profit from invading right away. This is the only weak thing left. And so now white can attack this for maximum effectivity. Really cool stuff that we can learn from this. And we see black, like I said, these are 2 stones. It's not a group yet. It's not like this thing. We see black just play away. Just play away. We can see that if white chose to waste moves taking this, he can enclose the corner. And this would be really bad for black. Or white. This would be great for black. The corner's now not worth anything. He's got a solid base. Maybe you could even jump out, put more pressure, or just make a 3-space for this guy. And then there's still Aji here, so if I want to come back and spend another move to capture this, you can make another Moyo, and that'd be horrifying. Look at how good black's position is, because white was forced to capture those 2 stones. So don't be afraid to sack 2 stones, and the sense of figuring out what's the right thing to sack is going to... Honestly, sometimes it's how you feel, and you got to experiment to really get the right ideas. But we do see black play away from here, and we don't see white follow up exactly for the reason I just described. If white spends another move to capture 1 stone, black's going to get this corner surround. So white decides to defend. And we see a joseki being played. And now this is even sort of helping the stone out right now. And notice, white still isn't going for these 2 stones yet. White's playing the bigger move. It seems so simple. I don't know why it's so hard for us, but these are very, simple things. It's not worth it for black to try to pull this stone out, give white a crap ton of strength over here, and then figure out what he has to do with it. Why not just take big points? And white's like, I'm not going to waste stones trying to capture these yet. There's nothing hugely in danger. Let's just make a bigger group. So that is how the second game went. And I think it's really cool. Some of the cool moves I liked in this game was the fact that black just left this and how white didn't respond right away. I really like that. We also see white making sure that his corner group is safe because he realizes that if this is safe, this is not. And black knows that, so he has to. So these gote moves are also really cool. I guess they're technically not gote if it's like forcing, but it really comes down to what you consider forcing. For a pro, probably letting white get this point was forcing. As a Q, the forcing moves are more dramatic than that usually. So, and then this, playing away from these 2 stones even still. And white not taking advantage yet. And nobody caring about this crap right now is very, very cool. I want you guys to keep a note of this, because we're going to see this in the next game a little bit differently. And we're going to see what happens. It's very cool. And this is the last game I've got for you guys tonight. So let's bring it back. All right, so we see more 3-4s. There's 3-4s across the board right now. Well, we've got 1-4-4. Actually, this is the exact same opening. We've had the same opening all 3 times. Pretty cool. 1, 2, 1, and white plays here. And black chooses to do the exact same thing. Not enclosed yet. White decides to be a little more aggressive about it and pincers this time. So now we see the exact same joseki get played. Exact same joseki, which is kind of cool. But notice the key difference. Black doesn't... Remember before White played this move to completely seal it off? Black went here instead. Oh, who won the game? It's a good question. Sorry. I was more focused on opening, so I didn't actually say who won. I believe that White won the game by a small margin. Yeah, White won the game by like 3 points that game. Yes. So this game I will tell you who won, though, because it matters. The other games we saw sort of the opening being very even for both sides. This, I think, was a bad thing. It was a bad thing, and nobody, an amateur, would ever guess this. Black played away. He didn't solidify this group to try to take bigger points. And we don't see White, you know, play this move or any of the normal moves we would see to split this side. We actually see White immediately, like a wolf, pounce on this. Basically robbing Black of his face. Now, if Black, you know, decides to play here, he's only got kind of one eye. Doesn't really... He could get... If White keeps pushing, Black kind of only has one eye right now. And he could make another one pretty easily, but we see another ignore for another enclosure. So now Black has 2 enclosures. That's great. But White is eyeing down on this group like there's no tomorrow. And now Black's base is completely gone. And he's got to run. So we see him run. And we see White immediately start going on the attack right now, because this is very strong. This is strong. Black Tenuki twice and took away his entire base. We see the double Hane. And I don't want to get too torn up about the actual combating moves, because we can sort of see the flow of what's happening right now. White keeps pressing back Black over. Black keeps needing to respond because this group isn't alive. Keeps making his side stronger. This is more and more strength that he can use to attack this now. Black decides to try to get a counterattack going. Maybe try to attack these 2 stones. White makes shape for here and starts poking at the shape point. We see that Black does not respond. This cut is brutal, right? So we see Black try to make a forcing move first. Start attaching. We see another reason for this move is that now White can make a very strong double knight shape, which is just a strong shape to have. This group is not easily attacked now. Still trying to find those eyes. White's keeping a base for himself. Black still got the eyes. And now this group looks safe. Except for this stone now. Except now this guy. Except this guy. White wastes no time. And they're not taking big moves elsewhere because these attacks are so good. No time kicking this. Because that joseki that I showed you, oops, Black has to make a really tiny little sad base that's not doing anything. This entire Black group is now surrounding 5 points of territory. This is probably going to surround 4. White can secure this entire corner and this corner. Black has these 2 enclosures, but was it worth it? White decides to try to attack the base. Black tries to attack the White group, but White decides, I'm pretty okay here. I'm going to keep surrounding this. Black tries to leave, and white just keeps going, and black's just trying to search for this Aji. Just trying to use it. And the cool thing is nothing dies here. Nobody dies. But the advantages that white is getting from this is huge, because this is still doesn't have exactly 2 eyes yet. If we can look. This is technically false, unless black can get something else going, so black still has to run. And white can't really see a good way to attack this anymore. So now white answers and uses this power that he gained from attacking this group to basically surround most of the left half of the board. So way back from this first joseki that I showed you in the other game, forget that. Here, right? 2 ignores forced black to have to make this really sad little 5-point group and got another attack going on this group. Nothing died. Nothing died. But white was able to get a lot of points here and a lot of points here. Still can attack this if he wants. And white actually won by resignation in this game. So those are some really cool general principles that I think can really help us sort of figure out when they can Tenuki and when they can't. And a large amount of it is very experience-based, like knowing how your opponent can attack you and if that's good or bad. And that's just something we're going to have to learn, right? But we can sort of see like the similarities, if you will, that these pros are doing. We saw before how, with this joseki in the lower left, white made sure everything was solid, and it resulted actually in gote, or in sente, because black had to make that extension. But we saw when black tried to ignore, we saw the profit that white could get from it. So even if you don't know joseki, if somebody plays away, and you look at what they played away from, you're like, I don't know, I can take away your base, I can make you run. Consider those. You don't always have to take the biggest points on the board. These pros certainly don't. They have a very great sense of when they're allowed to and when there's bigger things. So that is my little mini lecture on Tenukiing in the opening. Hope it was a little bit informative. Definitely taught me a lot going through these games.